we have to set the example for the next generation. We have to break that societal norm of saying, therapy and health and wellness is bad. It makes you weak. Absolutely not. And if we're in a position to be able to do that, why not?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Blah, Blah, Blah Something Wellness podcast. We are kicking off the new year and we are doing reframing resolutions for success, setting personal goals and maybe some department goals, and giving the listeners as much insight to how you can actually succeed this year with whatever goal you have. So with that, I am your host, Tami Sharp, joined by my partner in all things, Chris Zamora, and we have a whole bunch of new faces. We have fresh faces. You guys aren't babies, though. You know what you're doing. You're not rookies. You've been around. I'm really stoked for this group of people. So we'll have Greg introduce yourself, Jed, and then Thomas.
All right. I'm Greg Anton. I'm a sergeant out with Las Vegas. I've been out here for just short of 19 years. Did 10 years active duty in the Air Force, and then straight from the Air Force transitioned over to the police department.
Jed Cates. I work as a deputy sheriff in Skagit County, Washington State. I've been in law enforcement for coming up 20 years. I'm also in the Coast Guard Reserve, finishing up about 18 years total military time as well.
My name is Thomas Bolen. I will be the rookie of the group. I've got 7 years on, and before this was just college baseball.
Awesome. Well, and nice. I love it. It's so funny. I must be getting older because I look at you guys. You have full careers under you, and I'm like, you guys are kids. You're just babies.
Young, successful babies.
Awesome. Well, as we kick this off, I want to know real quick, do you guys set resolutions? Do you believe in resolutions? Where are you at with your goal setting?
Well, I guess I'll kick it off. Yeah, I do and I don't. And feel free to chime in for anybody else. But long-term resolutions, in my opinion, I feel are more harder to obtain just because it takes longer to get there as opposed to shorter ones. So for me, I kind of make shorter ones on both a personal and professional. So the personal would be like, for me, it's a day-to-day thing. Like I'm going to go to the gym after work, or I'm going to read a book tonight, or I'm just going to de-stress for a little bit, because those ones I know I can attain on a daily basis. And if I don't, I know I got the next day. As far as like work ones are a little bit different. I'm sure Jed and Thomas can attest to this because anywhere you go on the department, there's politics and there's testing and putting, FaceTime in and stuff like that. So for me on the professional side, if there is something that I want to obtain, I kind of look at, how long I need to get there. Who do I need to talk to? And then from there, I start back planning to figure out, where I need to go. But for me, I would say I'm more of a short-term guy right out the gate. That way I have smaller steps to achieve as opposed to one giant one.
Awesome. I'm going to unpack that a little bit as we get there because I like that you have the little baby steps. Okay, Jed, what about you?
I would say, I don't know, I kind of hit the medium range when it comes to goal setting. Just because I've had planned with like, hey, this is what I want to do when I retire. But as I've furthered in my career and gained new experiences, that's not necessarily the direction I want to go anymore. And switching that, career-wise, it definitely got to plan out a little bit more still, like Greg was saying, because there's prepping for sergeant's assessments, and you don't want to start that the month prior. You need to be starting, 6 months, at least a year, several years even. And then personally, it's just kind of back and forth. And, if I can complete what I wanted to get done that day, I feel that's a successful day.
My goals are usually in about 3 to 5 month increments. I usually set where I want to be professionally in the sense of what agencies, which bureaus I want to spend more time with, kind of where I want to be that way professionally. Like right now, I'm spending a lot of time down at the academy trying to get into more of an instructor role. And personally, my wife's due in 7 weeks. So my personal goals are make sure the house is set, make sure savings account's ready, and make sure the nursery's set up.
Yeah.
I'm so
Those are good ones to have.
Yeah.
Get plenty of sleep now because you're not going to get it for that first
Yes,
year.
Doc had to sleep.
Yeah.
Doc had to sleep and lots of, just patience. And I'll just say your wife is always right.
Favorite answer is yes, dear.
I saw Chris blink. She's like, I don't know about that. Like, awesome. Okay. So you guys, I love having you on here because you guys are the future leaders of your department. And I know we've worked with you guys. You I'll just kind of say you guys have given me permission, but we've worked with you with the coaching aspect. I know Thomas, you're solid at like you set a goal, you are going to accomplish that goal. So will you kind of walk me through like your mindset for all of you guys? Just like where are you, like do you even like resonate with the word failure, or do you know to fail forward? Where are you at with that? Do you?
Well, I'll start. I would say I don't remove failure from my vocabulary, and particularly because if we don't, in my personal opinion, is if we don't fail, we don't learn. So I guess failing forward would be the ideal aspect of it because, there's been a multitude of times in my career where, I've tried to go to a certain bureau or I've tried to do, certain task force or certain things like that that didn't just pan out. And for me, instead of just saying, hey, you know what, I'm done, like when I tested for sergeant, I didn't make it the first time. I missed it by, I think, 1 point. And that one was a hard pill to swallow. And a majority of the people that I remember testing with, they were done. They said they didn't want to put themselves through that scrutiny again. It was stressful. So I understood that. But for me, it was recalibrating and saying, okay, what did I do wrong on this last one? And what could I do better on this next approach? And, my mentality was if I don't make it on this next approach, I got another approach. I got another approach. I mean, Jed's been doing this longer than I have because I've been on for about 12 years. So he can attest it's, when you look at the end goal, at least for me, where I say, hey, you know what, I have time, it takes the pressure off. So for me, it's just recalibrating and saying, cool, we're going to reapproach, reassess, and reattack.
Oh, you were synced up with my energy. Recalibrating has been my word. Like we're doing a wellness retreat in Washington this summer. It's our second annual, but because the term wellness has been beat to death with law enforcement, nobody's listening. Hence also the name blah, 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 something wellness podcast, because nobody likes the term wellness anymore. So we were like, it's a recalibration retreat. Like there's not that there's anything wrong with you. You're not broken. Some might feel that way, but just recalibrate your mind, your energy. Like, I love that we're on the same page with that. So awesome. On the note of, getting passed over, trying to promote all of that, we see that all the time. People get passed over for the promotion and they get really bitter and jaded. Jed, a different mindset for that. So you want to speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, I've tested for sergeant now, I think 3 times, if I can remember right. Not passing it the first couple times, finally passing it the third time, and was just super excited about that. And then recently put in for a corporal position where I did well. They selected someone else, but for me, I had kind of the silver lining on the other side with the Coast Guard. I'm within a couple years of retiring and never thought I'd pick up chief there, just the way their testing works. And then a month, when I hit my 23-month mark of like, all right, I see the light at the end of the tunnel, I'm going to retire. I got notified by a buddy that I was getting advanced to chief. And I was like, you're joking. Yeah, I didn't believe him at first. And then once the second, third, fourth text phone calls came in, I was like, oh, okay, this might be a real thing. So
That's awesome. So how did you
Awesome.
navigate in the mindset of, you got passed over for the promotion over there? What was your mindset around that? And then did you notice how your mindset was about, actually getting a promotion in another field?
well, the first couple times I tested for sergeant. It's well, the first time it was I was just putting in for it to try it out, see, just feel out the process. I wasn't necessarily ready for it myself. Um, and then the second time was hard to because I just barely missed it by like a point or two. And at that point, my mindset was not good. I just kind of, you know, not really dealt with it, but I didn't deal with it well. Just kind of beating myself up and whatnot. And then going through several coaching sessions and just fixing that mindset and realizing, you know what, it's not my time. Um, really helped, especially when I picked up Chief and the Coast Guard. Then I was like, well, okay, that my time came, then I wasn't expecting it at all. So I had completely let it go at that point that I was never going to advance past the point where I was.
Oh, and I love that too, because a lot of time we put so much energy and focus on something that we want, we almost choke it out where it's just like, I want, and we don't get it and we're frustrated. And the second that you let something go, you got to trust that you've planted that energy seed out there and it's going to show up for you. I have learned, like with business, if we're trying to bring on a new department, we're trying to get, you know, something to actually engage with whatever we're doing. If I sit here on the computer and I keep hyper fixating on it, nothing's going to happen. But if I go outside, all of a sudden I come back to my phone and it's like, oh, I have all sorts of stuff because you let that energetic pressure release just kind of go. And then you get to enjoy it because it's like, oh, okay, that came to me. For those that are understanding, that's a little bit of a law of attraction stuff for those that are into it. Thomas, for you, you're baby on the group, but you're not. You have lots of experience. You're doing good. And this is the thing too, where the time on that you have it depends on the agency. You could have 20 years in and have barely really done much, or you can be at your guys' like larger agencies where you're doing stuff every day. But with your career and your mindset, how's your mindset of moving forward with all of this stuff? Especially the ultimate promotion to being a dad.
So I'm very much of the mindset of everything happens for a reason. So the adapt or die mindset is very much real in my house. If it's meant to be, it's going to be. How it's going to happen is kind of how it's going to end up happening. I've been very fortunate to have very good mentors around, people who are willing to take me under their wing. I've had very good squad mates, supervisors, things of that nature that kind of help grab the vest, point me in that direction when I need to be. A lot of good perspective over the years. So the adapt or die is you can either say, you know what, yeah, this sucks, and then just kind of sit in the suck, or it's yeah, it sucks, get over it, on to the next.
No, I love what all three of them are saying. Because I mean, if you give up, then what, right? If you give up, even in a tactical operation, if you give up, then chances are you're not going to win that confrontation, right? It's the same mentality, and I can see how if you don't get chosen the first time or you don't pass that test the first time, all that stress, you're bringing all that stress on you, and it's like, well, why is it even worth it to continue? Some people might say it's not worth it. They're going to go do something else. Others might say, no, you know what? That's my goal and I'm going to promote. So I'm going to continue dealing with this, right? And it's just the individual is different. Now, what I asking you guys is, Thomas, you kind of brought this up. You had mentors. What would you guys say to those veteran officers out there? What kind of advice would you give them with regards to the younger officers who are coming in?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Chris. And it's interesting you bring that up because hearing what Jed was saying about how, and Jed, correct me if I misspeak on that, but how you're talking about how when you tested the first time just to get eyes on it, at least for me, I've seen that that's 90% of the population with us too, it's the mindset kind of, Chris, like what you're saying is like, hey, I just want to get eyes on it. And for me personally, I like, that's not a bad thing to do just to get an assessment on it. But I also think that kind of plays into how we approach it and how much we're putting into it and the time and the effort. Because for some of the guys that I know, they're like, hey, if we test, we're going to get the free day off. And that's kind of what they do just to get that look on it. But, for the veteran guys that do it, it's one of those things where it 100% comes down to mindset, in my opinion, as opposed to saying, hey, instead of just going in there and saying, I'm just going to get eyes on this, I'm going to do it for this, attack it right out the gate as if you're going for it. Don't you keep the work-life balance still in check. But if you go in with something, it's almost like baseball. If you go to the plate expecting to hit a home run, that's the mindset you're going to have. Whereas if you go to the plate and you say, hey, I might strike out, chances are mentality-wise, you're going to start orienting your mindset and your capability to that level.
Yeah. So when it comes to the older guys in regards to younger officers, so I'm in a really weird spot department wise because I've got 7 years on, and my sister squad, their most senior dude, has 34 years on, and he's still on patrol. And youngest dude on my squad he just crossed his 2-year mark. And some of the comments that fly out of his mouth are, well, if they do it, it's okay. Well, if they do it, nothing happens to them. Or until a sergeant tells me it's not wrong, I'm going to keep doing it. Specific example is something as simple as wearing the proper boots. Like this kid's wearing black Vans because they're more comfortable than the boots. So I call him out on it because I respect a very professional look as an officer. I still wear my gold pins. I still make sure everything's shined and nice and pressed the way it's supposed to be. His clothes are a little baggier and boots are not as shined. So I call him on it, and his quote answer was, well, the senior guys, some guys wear cowboy boots and sergeant doesn't say anything, so I'm okay with it. So I am hypercritical of the senior guys in regards to their mindset because they have a direct correlation to the younger guys because they're who everybody looks to. If you guys have been doing it for so long, well, if that's okay, then it must be okay.
With Thomas, because I've also worked with you and I know kind of how your mind works, is you are very like, this is how things are done. This is what looks right. This is, you follow, you do a good job. You do policy and procedure and the things like this. You don't let things slide, basically. And you are not afraid to call people out, even if they are senior. Now, I don't know how that resonates with others. I don't know if they look to you being like, okay, who are you? But what is your mindset? Because here's the thing for those listening. Sometimes doing the right thing does not make you popular. It doesn't make you liked. Doesn't mean that you're in the wrong, but you have integrity and you are holding up the right expectations. So what is your mindset to be able to kind of have the cojones to do that?
Well, I mean, I have to be able to look in the mirror and say I'm doing it correct first, right? Like I won't call somebody out on something that I myself am failing in, right? Like if my uniform really is not looking good, I don't expect to be able to call somebody else out on it, which is why I make it a point to make sure my uniform is pressed and clean, my pens are shined, my brass is ready to go, and my boots are appropriate, right? I don't like cutting corners when it comes to things that we can cut corners on policy wise, right? Like if we can utilize discretion, but it's not opportune, I don't like utilizing it, right? Because it sets a standard of people not allowing themselves to be accountable to what's actually expected, right? Like when somebody calls us on their worst day, like they are expecting the police to be the police. I take that very seriously. So when people don't, I stand a little firmer, my heels dig a little further into the ground. So there are certain things that I just won't budge on. There's other things where they can just slack off about, and I genuinely think it's not my problem. I feel like it's a supervisor's job to call them out on it. But for the most part, if it's things that I see and that I have to deal with on a day to day, I will happily call whoever it is on it. I don't care your rank. I don't care your time on. There is a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things.
Well, and I think it's important because they're representative of all of you, right? And it doesn't matter what state you're from, what agency you're from. One person whose uniform is shoddy and they're disheveled, yeah, that could represent all of you guys, right? So it is important. It's funny you mentioned the black vans because this week, Tammy, I don't even think I told you, but I was getting lunch and I saw an officer from a city. I won't call out the city, but she's in there getting her food as well. And I noticed uniform looks pretty squared away, outer vest carrier, but she's wearing black mid-top Vans, all black.
They're so comfortable, Chris.
I knew it. I knew it. Well, if anybody, Greg is going to have those pair. I thought it was weird, man, because I'm like, wait, this is you. You're in uniform. You're wearing these skater shoes, right? And so I text a couple of my buddies who are still active officers, and I asked them, "Are you guys allowed to wear black Vans?" And they said, "Yeah, we are." As a matter of fact, the grooming policy and again, I'm not going to name any agencies, but they lowered the standards, so you can wear black skater shoes. You can Men can have man buns. They can wear that. They can wear dreadlocks. They can also wear earrings in uniform because they're trying to attract more people to the position. To me, I'm old school. I was the only guy in my agency that wore the old school polyesters. Everybody else had the outer vest carriers and the cargo pants, and I would only wear polyesters because that's what I visualized growing up as a cop. This is what a cop looks like you said, shine boots, brass is nice and shiny, and I refuse to wear an outer vest carrier because to me that's not the vision of what I saw as a cop. We're all different. Now, Greg, what are your thoughts on what we were just talking about? Because I know you're chomping at the bit there. And let me see your shoes because I'm pretty sure you're probably wearing some Vans, aren't you?
Yeah, I do have Vans on right now. I'm a West Coast kid, so no, that's a good topic to bring up, and I like what Thomas was saying about the standards because I'm all for it. I'm all for, especially as a sergeant. The one thing that I would say I do differently, especially with those senior officers and the standards and accountability, is bringing ownership into it. Because typically, in my opinion, and just what I've seen is for a squad to work well, like a well-oiled machine is what we call it. The accountability aspect has to be put in there, and then the ownership is one of the hardest things that I've found in instilling in the guys. And, to kind of piggyback off of what Thomas was saying, if you have a senior guy that's not adhering to standards or, to wanting to get out there and do calls or do whatever, I try to give ownership to that. So for me, for example, I run a field training squad. So I have a bunch of rookies and I have, TOs that train these guys. And that, FTOs, they get burnt out because it's natural. It happens after doing it 3-4 years. So how do you give them that ownership back into it? Me personally, I say, hey, you know what? For me, my standard is, every first day of that week, we do inspections with them. That's what I do. Make sure they know the serial number on their firearms. They know, the most important pieces of equipment. So instead of me doing it, I have the senior TO say, hey, you're running it this week. This week is your week to run it. I want them to run how you want them to run. And I'm just going to provide shadow and watch you do it. And in some cases it works where they actually get excited about it because now, when they're going out on those calls and those dynamic calls, like they're getting the phone calls that I normally get. And now they're taking ownership and saying, hey, if I make this call, this is what it's going to be. But at the same time, it's little things like that where they start realizing, hey, the eyes are on me now, and I need to start holding that accountability aspect, and that ownership into play. So the boots thing, what's funny about it is every department has certain policies and procedures on how they do it. And I'm sure Jed and Thomas can attest. Officers will wear that to the line. Like they will push it. If it says it has to be a semi-polished boot, the Vans just have that tip that you can polish them, so they'll find ways to circumvent certain things, which I think is natural. But, I'm like Thomas, like I like wearing my gold pins. I like wearing my uniform clean and shiny because I take pride in it. It makes me feel good when I'm out there. But, putting ownership back into each individual officer, I think that's what, a majority of people miss when it comes to it, because again, some people go out there and they say, well, what's in it for me? Because that's the reality, is everybody's what's in it for me. And it's no longer, I think the mindset's changed a little bit over the years.
I want to talk about standards a little bit more, because that is a goal. That is a goal for the departments and for you guys as well, because ultimately you all want to be safe. You want to be safe. You want to be doing your job. You want to be respected and have everybody showing up. And the departments, because of all of the crap that's happened the last few years, it's very hard. We all know recruitment and retention are problems in law enforcement. So a lot of departments have lowered standards because they are just trying to get bodies on the street by any means possible, which is not the right approach, but we can work on that a little bit. But some of the standards, it's not necessarily lowering the standards, it's adapting. So we're talking about Vans right now. I'm a 80s, 90s kid, skater girl type. Well, I did that, poser, whatever. I'll just own it. But skater shoes, get it. So is it a safety thing? Can you still do your job in those shoes? And I don't want to harp on the shoes too much, but going to the facial hair has been a controversial issue. Tattoos were a controversial issue, right? And now a lot of departments are like, okay, well, it's okay to have tattoos, It's okay to have facial hair, and we have a disconnect within the generations because the old school is like, no, you should not have a beard. It needs to be military. It needs to be high and tight, clean cut. This is the way you do it. And then the young Greg, you have a little bit of, you got your GQ beard.
I'm looking around and I'm like, all these things that you're saying are all aimed towards me because I got tattoos, I have the bands, so.
Hey, listen, Greg, but you got that Bradley Cooper look going today, so I think you can get away with it.
I'll take it, Chris. I'll take it all day.
You're a future coach with us, so this is your initiation. We're just, no, but okay. So let's talk about the beards because the beard is a thing. You have a little bit. What are your guys' department policies? Have they changed? And do you notice what the mindset is about beards?
Yeah, so I'll go on that one. So our department has changed drastically when it comes to grooming standards for us. So specifically facial hair. When I first started, we were not allowed to have any facial hair whatsoever. A mustache was acceptable, but it had to be supervisor discretion. And everything was clean cut, high and tight. You needed to be professional. Women were supposed to wear a bun. Men were not allowed to have anything longer that touched the collar. If it did, you were ordered to go get a haircut and shave your face on the spot in briefing. Now we're allowed to have a facial hair, but they qualified it to where it could be a 1/4 inch long, and guys can have longer hair and they can have a man bun because now it's. I'll just skip over a couple personal preferences, but but yeah, so they've loosened it quite a bit, and what's ended up happening is, as Sarge said, the officers have a tendency to push the boundary line for whatever reason, whether it's a because I can mindset, because nobody's going to hold me accountable to the standard mindset, or it's a I'm tired, I'm burnt out, I've been to 13 aggravated assaults in 4 days, so I'm just not going to shave my beard. Well, that plays into looking disheveled, looking tired, looking beat up, and now personally I've had to go to multiple fistfights where I talked to the dude after, did you know that this guy was going to be, did you know the officer was there going through the officer assault on things like that, questions. And they said, well, yeah, he looked tired. He didn't look like he was ready for a fight. So I thought I could get away. So for me, I would much rather keep a high standard to, even if it stops one fight against an officer, if it prevents one person from getting hurt, I'm all for it. Keep the standard high, leave it what it is.
I really like that perspective on it because we talk about a lot about the importance of fitness and nutrition, and we all have somebody that like if you have to jump a wall, you're on your own because your backup's not going to be able to do that. So we talk about the fitness standards a lot. But what you just said is, they thought they looked tired, and right now, again, echoing myself, but wellness is a dead word. Nobody wants to listen about wellness and how important it is to be taking care of ourselves, and also for the departments to be recognizing it is important. Everybody right now, as you guys are listening to this, you're in your budget cycles. Add in as much as you possibly can get away with for wellness, even if you don't know what the resources are. You need to be taking care of your people because just like that, if they look tired, the community sees that, and that's not a good look, even if their uniform's shiny. So,
well, and we all know bad guys size you up the moment that you arrive on scene. They're watching everything, right? And they're looking at your uniform. They're looking at what kind of shape you're in. And if you're disheveled, it does lower your officer safety. If you believe it or not, grooming standards actually do prevent bad guys from either running or attacking, right? Because if you look like a squared away Marine showing up on scene, chances are they're probably going to lose that fight, right? Versus you got long hair and it's scraggly hanging out, of your hat, and your uniform is dirty, right? And chances are you don't take care of yourself. So why would a bad guy respect you to begin with, right? So now, Jed, your region of the country, you got some big boys out there, some mountain men. They got some full on beards out there.
Yeah.
What are your standards out there?
So we can grow a beard, but it's got to be on our days off. But during the work week, as long as it looks like you're making progress in the beard, it's okay to leave it. But they don't want to see you come in clean shaved on Monday and then by Thursday, trying to get out of high school or something like that. Other than that, I can't say it's really affected our communities up here. I've never heard a citizen complain about the facial hair. the longer hair for males hasn't, that I've seen up in our area, hasn't come up this way. Might be more in Seattle.
You have man buns up there.
Now, maybe if you get a little bit further north towards Bellingham, you might, but down south, here in Skagit County, you don't see that as much. And most people have gone to outer carriers. And I've never had a citizen even comment about the outer carriers. They're just more curious about all the stuff we have on us, just like they did when we were wearing it all on our belts. So,
Question. So you guys all have short hair. Have any of you guys been in a fight where you had your hair pulled?
Hair's never been long enough to get pulled.
All right. So as that person, even though I'm not trained in anything really, I will say with the little bit of training that I have. So Chris and I actually, I used to help co-teach a women's self-defense class, and everybody's like, how can you teach this when you have no tactical or martial arts experience at that point? I'm like, I'm going to clean this up. I won't say what I really say, but I am a woman. Okay. So I travel a lot. I have a daughter. I'm on my phone all the time. I'm not paying attention usually to my surroundings. If a bad guy's listening, fuck yes, I am. I'm hyper aware. I am aware. But we would go and spar and we'd train and do stuff. And when we did ponytail pulls, I'd have my hair in a ponytail and he would grab that. And I was like, this is how I died. Right here. Because when somebody grabs, and this is for the man buns and the women, because I went past an officer, female officer, she's wearing a baseball hat and she had her ponytail sticking out here. I'm like, I could control her in 2 moves and I don't even know how to fight because of that ponytail. Because when somebody grabs your hair, and especially if it's higher up, I'm making my hair all pretty right now. They grab your hair, they have you like this. This sucks. They have full control over you. You cannot move. You don't know what to do. And if you don't have any of the training of how to do that, and we ran this drill so many times because you cannot pull away from it. He had full control of me, and he's a big dude and he's tactically trained. If this was a women's self-defense thing, that was absolutely the moment that I died. And especially if he had a knife, I'm done. So we had to really run that drill over and over of how do I put my nails into it, put all the pressure, drop weight, get in there, turn around so I have a little bit of control on that so that I'm at least able to try to get a punch or do something in. But it is ruthless. So I don't know what you guys are training in across the country with your DT, but if you have women or you have men with man buns, you guys need to, if I'm going to say for the men, I don't care. You could be Jed's big dude, like he can fight, but if he had a ponytail, it's going to work against him. So you guys need to be training on ponytail pulls and make sure that that's a thing.
Well, what's funny, Tammy, is I think a lot of the times, like, especially with the ponytails and the man bun things, it's, people don't experience exactly what you said. It's almost baptism under fire because some people don't experience that ponytail pull, or they've never been in a situation where somebody's grabbed their hair like that. And, mark my words, all it takes is one time to get put in that situation. And I guarantee you that person's going to cut it off, or they're going to modify it and adapt and say, okay, this can't happen again. So I think that's, when we talk about the grooming standards, it's one of those things where, kind of like Thomas was talking about the pride in your uniform. It's, you go out there and you're in a foot pursuit and you lose, a magazine or you lose your flashlight. All it's going to take is one time for you to get that baptism under fire to realize, hey, I need to tighten my gear down. Hey, I need to cut my hair. Hey, I need to wear different boots. It's, and a majority of officers, some won't ever see that, because that's the route they want to go, or, but the unfortunate part for our profession is that we don't pick and choose when it happens, and we have to be able to deal with it when it does happen.
You bring up a very good point, because I think one of the reasons why I never wore an outer vest carrier, all three of you train in BJJ, don't you? You guys train in something. I'm pretty sure you guys do.
Yes.
I was training in MMA, and my instructor, we would train with the outer vest carrier how to control somebody. And when I realized how easy it is to control somebody wearing the outer vest carrier, I said, no, I'm not wearing it, because of the tactical issues. Because when we get into fight or when we arrest somebody, we got to go hands on. We go touch, right? Body to body. We're in close flinching, whatever it might be. And that outer vest carrier, to me, is a big handle. And so that's one of the reasons why I never wore one, because tactically for me, I don't want somebody grabbing that. At the same time, if you, for whatever reason, need to be rescued and pulled somewhere, outer vest carrier is great, because it's like they can just grab it and pull you, right? But you got to give and take. What are you comfortable with? The other thing too with outer vest carriers that personally I wasn't a big fan of is, as cops, what do we like to do? We like to fill our pockets and put everything in our pouches, and then before you know it, we're all top heavy and we're carrying our entire trunk of our car on our outer vest carrier, right? And again, I'm a DT instructor. Well, I was a DT instructor, but when we clinch with somebody or we're in close proximity, that extreme CQB, CQC stuff, they're grabbing stuff from our vests, right? And I even had an officer, a good friend of mine, mentally ill subject, grabbed his taser off of the vest carrier and actually tased the officer. The officer pulled his gun out when he realized that the suspect had his taser, and as he's pulling his gun out, suspect hit him with the taser, and my buddy went down because he got hit and dropped his gun right at the suspect's feet. Fortunately for him, suspect ran into the house, didn't grab the gun because he could have easily picked up that gun and shot him. Again, these are some things to think about. So if you're going to wear that gear, train with it and find out what are the pros and cons of each one. And if you have a good gym that you train, get with your instructor, train with it, and have your instructor try to manipulate anything on your vest if you're carrying that. Yeah, Tammy's got pictures of me training with my instructor. I mean, he's just controlling me like it's easy for him to do. So again, something to think about when you're deciding on what you're wearing. But grooming standards too. How many of you guys have pulled somebody's hair to control them? I have. And I don't care if you're a male or a female, but if you're fighting or resisting and that hair is there, that's a great handle to control somebody. And I've done it several times, right? So again, something to think about.
I will just throw one little history lesson, and you can Google it and tell me I'm wrong. I don't know, because I got it from Google, so it might be bullshit. But I heard, I read that back in the Viking days, the warriors and the Vikings would have big beards because it was actually it would help cushion the blow if they took a hit to the jaw. It was less likely to break with a beard versus just being clean faced. So just a little twist on it for those that have beards, that they'd be like, yeah, I'm a Viking, whatever.
Well, let me
I
ask
was
you guys.
going to mention that before you did. That's why I have mine, but you brought it up.
I mean, Jed, I know you train in BJJ. Is it easy to choke somebody out that's got a full-on beard versus a clean shaven? I mean, when you're all sweaty and rolling on the mat?
I've never been that ruthless to try to grab somebody's beard and choke them out with it. Don't mean it to me, but
Okay, well, all of this rounds out to resolutions and success, because what we're talking about, and I hope that those are listening, we've had a lot of really amazing guests on our podcast. It's been primarily command staff, chiefs, leaders, and you guys are your leaders, but you're the future of your departments. So with that, like where we're at now, everybody's dealing with different dumpster fires. We have a not very friendly political climate towards law enforcement. We've had lots of movements. We're short staffed. Everybody's tired. Social media is crazy. All of these problems that we all know about. But there's also solutions, and there's a lot of good. And sometimes you got to break down in order to break through. So some of the stuff, I've said this a million times when we teach, just because something in a department has always been that way does not mean that it's the best and right way. There is room for evolution. It doesn't need to be change, it's evolving. So as we're evolving into this next year, what are some goals that you guys would like either you have for yourself, for your department, for law enforcement as a whole? If we can have the opportunity to kind of teach it forward to some of these other departments that are struggling, let's shift the mindset and forward thinking. What would we like to see within law enforcement, and what are some goals we can do to get there?
That's a very intricate and depthful question there. Because I mean, at least for me, like I don't think there's one particular point, like as far as like to pick up on, because as a sergeant running my squad, my main focus is my team. It's the guys, and at least for me, I try to have I would say a quasi stoic mindset in the sense of what can I control and what can't I control. And when you think of the politics and you think of, the executive staff and you think of political climate and, how the community perceives us, my reality is I can't control that. Like that's stuff that I can't control. For me, I'm an avid reader, and I read a book called Green Lights a long time ago, which is a great book by Matthew McConaughey. And he talks about, if you try to handle 10 things at one time, the reality is you're only putting 10% into each of those tasks. Whereas if you minimalize it and you say, okay, what 3 can I handle, or what 2 can I handle right now? I can give more of my energy. So 50% here, 50% there, which is better than 10%, 10%, 10%. For me, I start narrowing it down a little bit more in the sense of, what do I have to handle right now, which is my admin stuff. I need to make sure my guys are good. I need to make sure this is good. And I handle each one by one. That way I can give it 100% of my energy, and then I move on to the next one. So instead of, I guess, in our profession, looking at it as a whole and looking, what can I change here? What can I change here? I personally look at, what's my first task that I need to give 100% to, and then I see it out to the T. And it could be anything from, if you have to give a counseling session, it's okay, this is my main priority. This is what I got to talk about. If it's like Thomas said, hey, somebody's slacking on, on the, what the customs and standards and their uniforms out of line, that's my 100%. That's what I'm focusing on. How do I address it? And then kind of moving on from there.
For me, we're a department of like 60, so it's a relatively small agency. And so a lot of us, especially those that are senior, wear a lot of hats. And I have found it's better for me to, like Greg was saying, to focus on one thing while I can in between calls. So, for instance, over this last month, we've been dealing with a lot of major incidents in Skagit County where peer support has been needed, and trying to build a countywide program, because we are the biggest agency in the county, where a lot of agencies don't have that kind of support or great support. And so trying to focus on building a bigger program where we can support everybody has been one of the things I've had to do, especially this last week. And I've spent a good chunk of my shift trying to organize that. But that's where I needed to do it. I had to have that focus. And fortunately, I'm also in a position where I'm able to do that at times and not have to respond to calls.
So Phoenix is a giant department. You could pick any number of issues that anybody wants to actually venture down the pathway of trying to fix, and you'll get stonewalled by somebody you've never met who's been there for 13 years, longer than you've even been sworn. Just because you don't have the FaceTime, we don't know. There's lieutenants and commanders and chiefs that I've never even met or seen their faces, aside from a website bulletin board. That's how big our department is. So getting guys to understand that you can't control anything past when you hit send on the report, right? Like getting the young guys to understand that, yes, the guy you just arrested was released 14 hours later after his IA. That's gonna happen, right? And you're gonna go hook them up again for the same offense at the same address, probably every day of your shift, every day of your week, and that's okay. So getting the young guys to understand that you can't always text your way out of a problem, and you can't always just wish it away, and hoping that command staff now will just understand that, and getting them to just kind of get a more realistic understanding of what patrol is today, because now we have 13,000 more responsibilities at a patrol level than they did when they first started. Just with the adaptation of technology, we now have drones, we have different forms, we have different tracking that we need to do. So just getting the new guys in my head to understand that it's okay to kind of slow it down for a second and just stay within the realm of your job. Because if you try doing your job, his job, her job, and their job, you're going to stress out and you're going to burn out much faster.
A question on that. So in your guys' patrol car, you guys have like on the screen, you can see you like visually see all the calls stacking.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I want to marry in what you guys just said about one thing at a time, because that alone, I hate that. I'm going to let all law enforcement know I think that's horrible. It adds so much pressure. The community needs you to show up. And just like what Thomas was saying about showing up and looking like a cop, not looking like you're disheveled and out of it and burned out. Your poker face, your game face is on. When you show up, they need you to be the authority figure that they can trust. Trust has been broken with law enforcement. And so it's on the individual officers to do a little bit of, I know community policing is a term that everybody's like, ah, but proactive policing and getting back to some of the, yes, we're in new school times, but there are some old school methods that were really effective of just taking the time to talk to somebody. You can de-escalate so much by just giving somebody your presence. But what's happening is there's so much pressure on the patrol call stacking command is like, you gotta go, get next call. You don't just get in, get out. And you're breaking the communities by not showing up and catching some of the things. So what you guys just said, I just want to echo, and you guys can push back at me and be like, yeah, that's a, fantasy world you're living in over there, Tami. But just having the pressure of the call stacking and seeing that is now training your brain to have anxiety all the time. That you're never done. It's never enough. You can finish this call. There's 20 more stacking. You got to quiet that noise down. And that's a really good metaphor of just like your brain chatter too. We know that sleep is a big problem. So if that's the energy you're in all day is that it's never enough, you're never done, you go home, your brain's never going to shut off either. So hyper focusing on what is in front of you. Yes, there's 50 million calls, but right now I have a mom that's freaking out, whatever the call is. Quiet all the noise, be present, give that 100% to what's right in front of you, because again, the calls will always be there. So that is my soapbox tangent. You guys can tell me if I'm wrong or not. But
No, I think you're right. What's interesting about that, and again, I don't know how Thomas or Jed, because in ours it's called CAD, so we can see the list of calls that go out. My thought process has always been, and this is something that I kind of hold true, especially when I'm out there on the line with my guys, is I always tell them, I'm like, the day that you see me freaking out, that means it's hit, it's hit the fan. It's getting bad. So regardless of the circumstances, my thought process is if I go out there and my guys see me cool, calm, and collective, that's how they're going to operate. It's the same thing. Like typically if we have, 15 calls holding, which we've had at times, my job is to go through and prioritize them and figure out, okay, which one has the potential for this to go critical? And what I do is I read the details and I say, hey, you know what? This one needs to be handled next. And I'll tell our dispatch, hey, the next unit, I want them on this one. My approach to a lot of stuff, especially as a supervisor, is to take the thinking and the stress out of it for the guys on the streets, because I want them to be able to handle what they're handling. So again, it's being adaptive, and not all sergeants do it, but in some cases, if a call's been holding for 30 minutes and it's just a panhandle or a trespasser or a disturbance, it takes me nothing to call that person on the phone and say, hey, this is, Sergeant Anton, I'm just calling, to see what's going on. Are you guys okay? Half the time, 15 out of those 15 calls, there's 7 of them where the people are like, yeah, it's the same guy. Whenever you guys can get here, we would appreciate it. And I update that over the radio. I say, hey, this call right here, this is what's going on. They're code 4 for now, but whenever we can send a unit, hand them over there. And the guys listen to that, because then in their minds, they're thinking, okay, cool. Out of these 15, I only have 7. And these next 7 are already in line to go. So now the next 7 guys are going to head to those ones. And the next 7 guys that are available can handle the other ones whenever they're ready. But I've always been a very big advocate in trying to take the stress and the thinking off the team out there, because again, they're under tremendous amount of stress. That's the last thing that they need. And as a supervisor, I feel like it's my responsibility to alleviate that for them.
That's a very good point. As the supervisor, you should be monitoring the calls that your people are potentially going to be en route to, so you can prioritize what's important. But the other thing too is, I still remember years ago, my last hour of shift, I think I had 45 minutes left, and they sent me to an armed robbery, right? And, nobody likes to get a call that last hour of shift, right? That's going to probably keep you there for hours. But I responded, and I responded like I would have responded if I was, my first hour on shift. And when I was at the place interviewing the victim, my sergeant calls me because he was monitoring everything, and he was doing things behind the scenes. And he said, get minimal information, just get the basic information that the oncoming team, they're breaking from briefing, and that officer, the beat officer, is en route to take that armed robbery from you. So just do minimal, let the other officer do it. And I thought, really? Like, oh, how awesome is that? That's cool, right? But he did that. I didn't do it. I didn't sit there and say, hey, dispatch, can you break that other officer from the team, from briefing to come take this, right? That's not my place to do that. But like you said, Greg, a good supervisor is going to be monitoring this and making sure you're bringing that less stress on your people. Now, with the call stacking and having the ability to see what's holding, I would strongly recommend to other officers, don't look up what other officers are doing and how long they're on a call, right? Because that's going to piss you off.
Yeah,
this is what pisses us. We get pissed off so much because this guy is on a barking dog call and he's been on it for 45 minutes, right? And then we start getting so angry. And what's happened? Physiologically, we're changing, our blood pressure is up and we're pissed off and you know, we're getting out of control. Don't do that. And this is one of the advice that I would give young officers is don't look up somebody else's call and don't look up how long they've been on that call. And if it's a bullshit call, whatever it might be, just trust that your supervisor is on it. Cause I'm sure, Greg, if you saw that, you'd probably give your officer a call. Hey, what's the holdup? Why are you there for so long? Right. Yep. There's call stacking. Let's start taking these calls. So again, a little bit of advice from an old cop like me. Who cares what other people are doing? Now, at the same time, you do want to monitor what everybody else, because if somebody's going to an armed robbery in progress, you probably want to go too, if possible, for adequate backup. But I'm just saying, for those calls that who gives a shit about, don't get too overly focused and hyper focused on those types of calls, right?
Well, I'm just kind of thinking because we're also coming around time, but I want to button a few things up too. And Greg, we'll have you back on and talk more in depth, but you were part of a very traumatic experience because you said, like, if they see you freaking out, then they kind of know, like, hey, so you were part of responding to the Mandalay Bay incident. Did you freak out? Did you keep your cool? How did you handle that?
Well, I don't know how much time we have because this would be a super long one. It's interesting because our department, we train specifically for those events, you know, and I was very fortunate that night that the squad I had, the 4 guys that were on my team, all had the same mindset. So for us, there was no hesitation. It was, you know, it's go time. This is what we train to do. We're ready to go. In our eyes, we were the ones that needed to be sent. And all those guys that I'm with, they're doing fantastic things now. You know, some are sergeants and some are lieutenants. But what we noticed was on a higher level, meaning like, because I wasn't a supervisor at the time, right? There was a little bit of hesitation when it came to saying, hey, we need to go, or hey, we need to wait for orders, or, you know, there was a lot of stuff that was going on that night where everybody's mind was going at 1,000 miles an hour. And there was some hesitation in that sense. And what I could tell you from an officer's standpoint, being there, was when that hesitation presented itself for us, it made me question not necessarily our team tactics, but our the credibility in the sense of who we were going in there with, because we were all under the same impression, like, hey, this is what we're here for. This is why we're going. We need to go now. You know, and a slight hesitation like that, you know, can break the dynamic of 4 people that already have that mindset of going. For me, it was a big learning experience that night, especially as a sergeant now, going out there, recognizing, you know, bullets could be flying, the worst of the worst could be happening, you know, but there's always breaks in the game where you can take a breath and look at everybody and say, hey, everything's gonna be fine. We got this. Let's take a breath, recalibrate. This is what we're gonna do, and this is how we're gonna push forward.
So, and I know I just opened just popped the top of a very big, we're going to unpack it whole in another episode, but I just wanted to kind of talk about that. And also, because for my own knowing after that, did you guys, topic of the week, but did you guys do a SISM debrief immediately? That's my first question.
Yes, we did.
And then did you guys utilize wellness resources to make sure you were all okay afterwards?
So at the time, I believe ours was standing. We had one, but it wasn't as highly utilized as it was now. And obviously, this would be, you know, a topic of discussion for another time because we could talk for hours about it. But prior to that, I would want to say that the health and wellness aspect and talking to a therapist and seeking out counseling if you were feeling off, it was almost like a taboo at the time where, you know, it was like one of those things where, you know, you're seen as Superman, and if you're seeking help, it was, you know, you're kind of like, what's wrong with you? Just suck it up and press, you know, it's the kind of mentality. But after that, year to date, like, our department's been phenomenal with stuff like that. And I know Jed brought it up, and I wanted to expand on that because the thing I noticed is if your guys know that you're utilizing those resources, and I'm very open about it, like, I have a therapist that I have in pocket since 1 October, and the dude's phenomenal. Um, if the guys see, Sarge out there saying, hey, it's cool to use it because I use it, right? And they see you out there doing this stuff, it makes it more or less them saying, hey, okay, yeah, maybe I'll give it a shot. This is kind of like leading into what Thomas said, like, we have to set the example for the next generation. We have to break that societal a norm of saying, therapy and health and wellness is bad. It makes you weak. Absolutely not. And if we're in a position to be able to do that, why not?
Thank you for that. And I'll let you guys speak on it too, because it's again, as you guys are future leaders and you guys are holding these, you have people looking up to you. And the old school, some of them, they get it, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to utilize the services for themselves, but they at least get it and are like, okay, run with it. It is literally on you guys and your generation as leaders to be like, hey, I am seeing a therapist. I am working with a coach. I do yoga. I do these different things and they're helping. Not only is it helping you, those that are coming up are watching you lead by example. So if you show them that it's okay to utilize these services and you make it known, that's going to it's going to set the tone for a lot, as we've kind of already said. But also knowing if you see somebody on your squad or in your department that's showing some red flags, firsthand, hey, here's the card to the therapist or the coach that I work with. Reach out to them. I utilize them. I can make the call for you. Because sometimes when people are in that dark space, they're not going to make the call. Yeah, I will. And be like, nope, we're going to go get you the help that you need because you care. Jed and Thomas, what do you guys have to say? And then we're going to wrap this one up.
So I was an FTO for the last 4 years, and just the younger cops, whether they're coming in at 21 years old or 38, 50, I've had OITs that are close to 50. It's a new world for them, and they don't know what they don't know. So realizing the critical incidents that they're going to respond to, they understand it, but they don't truly comprehend what they're about to see and how it's going to affect them. So I've called it's called EAU for us, Employee Assistance Unit for us. I've called them multiple times for my OITs on numerous occasions. Just watching how they kind of red flag out themselves. They'll be a little shaky, they'll be a little distant, a little 1,000-yard stare in briefing. And then I'll get a phone call or a text message a few weeks later. Hey, thanks for doing that. So I think they appreciate it. I think they're skeptical to do it. One, they're probably new to the world and they're like, I don't want to be seen as weak in the world. But two, they really don't know what they're walking into. So having it there is more beneficial than a lot of people realize.
Well, and also the proactive. I'm going to be hammering proactive because you guys work in a reactive world and it's a reactive mindset. And the mindset when it comes to wellness is you also don't do anything until after you hit breakdown and now you need to dig yourself out. Proactive approach. And what I love about having Thomas on here is, he's going to become a new dad soon. He gets to have a break. He gets to be in that bubble. And we've already talked proactively because I would love to say you're going to become a dad and you're never going to respond to another dead baby call in your life. I would love to have that. That's unfortunately the reality is, and we've talked about this is, Chris talks about it a lot. He could handle dead baby calls before he became a dad. Once he became a dad, everything changed. And you change as a person when you become a parent and you react to the calls much differently. And so proactively, Thomas, you're becoming a dad, but you already have an entire support network. So when you do respond to that first kid call that triggers you, you already know, hey, we're here to catch you and walk you through it so that it doesn't stick with you for the next however many years of the rest of your life. So taking a proactive approach and making sure you have those resources and the awareness in place are so important.
Absolutely.
Okay, I want to honor everybody's time. It's been a great conversation. We could talk for hours and I love it. But if somebody were to just tune in to the last little part of this podcast, which I hope you listened to the whole thing, but if you just did, what is your 2-second mic drop takeaway advice that you would have, for whoever that is, whether it's leaders, sergeants, the new generation, whoever that is coming into the next year, setting themselves up for success?
I would say, for me at least, it's remember your kid at heart. And the reason I say that is because a lot of the times, especially in our profession, and doing as critical of a profession as we do, we forget what makes us happy, and we forget what brings us balance. And for me, it's comic books and action figures and all that stuff, and that's what I love doing as a kid. And I say this all the time: at what point in our life did we forget what brought us joy as a kid? And why can't we go back to that? Why does everything have to be so serious? So you only get one go around at the world, and I'd rather not be stressed out.
I think for me, when it comes to looking at progress, whether it's personally or in career, I've always enjoyed a quote. It says something along the lines, make your plans, but write them in pencil. Because you never know what life's going to throw at you and things could change. And what I've been learning probably in the last year or so is giving myself grace. It's easy to sit there and have these, like, I'm going to do this every day. And then when I don't, I kind of beat myself up of like, you had time, you could have done it and you didn't. And I just have to remind myself, it's okay to miss something every once in a while. There's always tomorrow to keep pressing on.
My wife and I practice the four walls. So if it doesn't affect our immediate four walls, i.e., if it doesn't affect our day to day, it's not at the top of the concern list, at least until it does affect our four walls. So if it doesn't affect our happiness, our health, our financial stability, if it doesn't affect anything that has to do with our household and our immediate child to be, our dogs even, right? We don't put more than what's necessary into it, and then we just kind of brush it off and put it till later until it does affect our four walls. It's been really helpful working into our life, just with everything, all the chaos and the noise, kind of everything going on around everybody.
Yeah, for me, I think if New Year's resolutions, I think if you create this habit of creating long-term goals and short-term goals and even daily goals, the New Year's resolution really isn't really, it's not really significant because you're already in that mindset of creating these goals, right? You're not going to wait for a new year to create a goal. So, and the goal could be something as simple as, today I just want to get through my shift. Short-term goal right there, right? And then now let me, when you reach that goal or you achieve that goal, celebrate it, right? So if my goal is just to get through my shift today, when I clock out and I'm walking out to my car to drive home, I'm going to celebrate. I'm going to say, hell yeah, I made it. I did it, right? I don't need to think 2, 3, 4 days ahead, right? Because that can be, if you're really struggling with anything and it's your Monday, your Friday, 4 days from now, might as well be 400 days from now, right? Because it's going to seem like a very long time. So throughout my shift, here's what I'm going to do. I start my shift at 5 a.m. You know what? My goal is to make it to lunch, right? At noon, whatever it might be, right? And then you get to lunch. Oh, I made my goal. Now my goal is to end my shift, get to 3 p.m., right? Little things like this, those are short-term goals. Guess what's happening when you're doing this? You're racking up the wins, right? Throughout the day and throughout the week. By the end of the week, you're like, look at how many times I've won this week. And it changes your mindset, right? So yes, it's great to have those long-term goals, but create those little daily goals as well, right? Tammy, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, I was gonna go with Greg. So with Greg's inner child, so Chris likes his action figures as well. He likes all WWE old school wrestling stuff. And so for Christmas, I was at Target getting these things, and it was so funny because I was with my mom. I was like, "Oh, I gotta get Chris's dolls." And this other couple goes by, and the wife had also just said something about getting the guy dolls, and he turns around, he's like, "They're action figures," and she and I,
Collectible action figures.
Yes. Yes. And you can make them fight, right? They're the old school Titan, WWF, used to be WWF. I still say WWF, but yeah, those are my anything 80s, by the way, I'm all about He-Man, G.I. Joe, right? So Greg, you and I are on the same wavelength, when it comes to playing with toys.
well, to wrap up, so my 2-minute takeaway, Tammy tangent, echoing the word, I love that you said that. I'm on the right track. So recalibrate. Wherever you're at, whether you're in the beginning of your career, a lot of people get into the career being like, this isn't what I expected. Okay, well, what did you expect it to be? Let's unpack that. Because, you also, I hear this a lot. Well, I got in because I wanted to help people and now I'm not helping anybody. That's a mindset reframe that we need to look at, because you are actually helping somebody. It might not be to your expectation of what you thought, but let's unpack it and reverse engineer it back of how you are actually and how you can help. Now, you can't help somebody that doesn't want to help themselves. So there are going to be calls and people that you're like, oh my gosh, but you are making a difference in other people's lives. If you are in a way where you're burned out, you're pissed off, you're disgruntled, whatever it is, you're not getting the promotion that you want, you're not just living, you're not happy to go to work. It's not that there's anything wrong with you or that you're broken or that you need to go to therapy. Some of you might. It's okay to go to therapy, but recalibrate what that looks like and say, hey, this is really stressing me out over here. What can I do to just shift it a little bit? If you were shooting a gun and everything's right, but you're missing the mark a little bit, are you going to just throw the gun away and say it doesn't work and say, oh, I'm a bad shot? No, you're going to recalibrate. So that is the theme. I love that you're on the same page with that. And with that, for everybody listening, until next week.